Alright, so here it is, the hub mounting assembly, that's what I'm going to call it. It's out of the car. That's been the whole goal of this endeavor up to this point. You have to remove this thing from the car in order to replace the bearing. You can't do it while this piece is still in the car. So this is, you can see it spins on here, and you can hear it making noise. That's because the bearing's bad. If I flip it over, this is what it looks like. This is the hub assembly with the studs. That's where your wheel bolts to. Be careful with this dust shield back here. It's really thin sheet metal. You can bend it all up, and then when you put it back on the car, it's going to rub on the rotor, and you're going to have to take it off and bang on it and get it bent back straight. So just be gentle with that. So the first step is going to be to push out the hub from the rest of this bracket. But for me, the first thing that I have to do, right here is where the analog brake sensor mounts. And if you remember, when I was taking that bolt out, I broke the bolt off in the hole. So I'm going to drill that out. And because it's the hole is drilled all the way through, the bolt goes all the way through, I'm just going to drill it out. And I bought a bolt and a nut. And I'm just going to run a bolt and a nut through that hole. I'm not going to try and tap it and save the threads in here when I drill it out and use a screw extractor. So I'm not going to show you that step. So I'll do that, and then we'll come back and we'll hammer out the hub. Alright, so now the next step is to remove the hub from the hub mounting bracket. And you can see that I have mine kind of propped up in between a couple of stacks of wood. And I've made sure that the hub itself, that's the flange that has the studs on it that you mount your wheel to, that the lug nuts go on the studs. The hub is not touching any of this wood that I am using to support the hub mounting bracket. I also made sure that this dust shield isn't resting on the pile of wood on that side, so it doesn't get bent. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a socket. This is that 1¼ inch socket. Put it on top of the back end of the hub and hit it with a sledgehammer until it comes out. Starting to move. Couple more shots. Okay, so that's out. Now you can see that the hub has been separated from the hub mounting bracket. So this is the hub, okay? And this is the ring that we were pounding on with the socket. The socket sits right on top of that. And we pounded this thing out. Okay? Now in the hub, you see all of these balls. Those are the ball bearings that are in your bearing. So what we actually did was split the bearing in half. There's a race in here, and there's another set of ball bearings underneath this race. You just can't see it. Because what we actually did when we knocked the hub off was we knocked off like the front race on the bearing. And you can see that race ring is stuck on the hub. It doesn't come off. Now we have to cut this off of the hub. So we've actually just broken the bearing to get the hub out. And now you got to cut this piece off. Alright, I moved outside so I can cut this hub bearing ring off. It's got an angle grinder with a cut-off wheel on it. And I'm going to carefully cut this inner race of the bearing off of the hub. You're not actually going to get to go all the way through because you don't really want to cut the hub itself. So I'm just going to cut it enough so that there's a deep enough groove so I can hit it with a chisel and actually crack it off. while I'm doing this, as the grinder gets closer to the flange, I actually lift up and try and pick the cutting wheel up out of the back end, and then just put the cutting part towards the front. Because if you just let it rest on there and move it forward, it's going to continue to cut back here at the back, and you'll definitely cut into the hub. Okay, so now you can see the groove that I cut on that race, the ring that's stuck on the hub. I didn't try and go all the way through. I just went deep enough so that now I can take a mallet and a chisel and try and actually split that off. And I know it sounds strange, but you can do it. So now I'm back over at the bench vise. I got this thing all clamped up, and I'm going to try two different things. I have this kind of small chisel tool and a mallet, and I'm just going to try, and I'm going to put this in the groove and just hit it with this mallet a few times to see if I can't just break this thing off. Kind of prying on the back of the flange at the same time. One of the advantages of this curved tool. Just trying not to scratch the surface of the hub. I think I'm going to try and cut it just a little bit more. Alright, I'm back from the grinder. And one thing I did notice when I was out there on the grinder is that the hammering is starting to work. The bearing race is moving away from the flange of the hub. And there's actually, I actually did manage to cut this little ring part of the bearing. I probably could just cut this with the cut it with the grinder, but this little small flange, hey, the whole thing's starting to move now. When I did that, I might actually just be able to drag this thing off of here. Okay, so that's off, and you can see that this thing, it moved a lot. So now I'm just going to try and hammer it off from the back side here. It's kind of hard because, I don't want to scratch the hub. Let me just try and crack it again. It's moving. Oh yeah. Okay. It's off. And you can see I got a little nick in the hub here from the grinding wheel. It's not too deep. I'm not too worried about it. This is a 2003 car. I'm going to put a new bearing on it. I don't think that little bit of a nick is really going to hurt it. But that's, just be careful when you're grinding out there. You can't see when you're starting to get through this ring that's left behind from the bearing. You can see it's got some thickness to it. Got these glasses, and it's a pretty heavy piece, but still, you can cut through it and nick up your hub a little bit. But I don't think that's a big deal. I'm not going to worry about it. If you cut it really bad and you really get nervous about it, you can buy a new hub. They sell hubs. They sell a hub for, I don't know, 50 or 60 bucks. So if it really makes you nervous, you can just go buy a new one. You can even throw it away and not even have to start to try and take this piece off. But I'm not going to worry about it too much. This is the second one I've done. The more you do, I'm sure the better you get at it. And you can see you could really just kind of, if you can get behind this thing, you can just hammer it right off. The hard part of getting behind it is that, when it's on there, it's all the way back against the flange here. And, there's no way to get a tool down in there. All right, so now we have to go press the bearing out of the hub mounting bracket. Next step, I brought it out, I brought the piece out in the sun so you can see a little better. Now we have to press the bearing out of the hub mounting bracket, and we're going to press it from the back side. But if you press it right now, it won't come out because the bearing is being retained in by a snap ring. And this is the replacement snap ring. This is what it looks like. And on this one you can see that the ends of the snap ring are here and here. Okay, so when this piece goes inside, it's going to clamp down, it's going to squeeze down a little bit, and the opening is pretty much going to be there. So you have to get this thing out, and it's not an easy thing to do. They make something called snap ring pliers, but every one that I've seen, every snap ring pliers that I've seen is set up for snap rings that has little holes drilled in the ends of this. And then the pliers just have little prongs that go in the holes. You squeeze the handle, it pushes the ends of the snap ring together, and bip, you take it out. You know, Nissan decided to torture people with this one and put this kind of a snap ring in. It doesn't have holes, it just has these little ledges on it. And now you have to try and dig this thing out of the groove that it's in. So I'm going to put on my safety glasses because this is a spring, just a piece of spring steel. And I'm going to try and dig that sucker out. Alright, I think I've discovered how to get this thing out. I have it clamped up in the vise, and I was actually going to try and just put a screwdriver in here and hit the snap ring to make it spin. And when I did that, I was able to get the screwdriver under it. So I'm going to try and do it again without hitting the camera or the tripod. And of course, now it's hard to get the tripod in here set up because, you know, I'm being blocked in by the car and everything. Let me try and get this repositioned so that you can see it and I can work on it. So I'm going to hit this thing with the hammer again. Whoops. Alright, so I had the screwdriver behind the snap ring. And it just slipped out. So I think that's the trick. I got to get this back behind it again. There it goes. And then, once I get it behind there, I'm going to try and work it out of the groove. Maybe I need to use the other tool. I gotta go grab it. Okay, now I actually have the ring out. Oops. Ah, almost. There it is. Ah. Alright. So once you get it loose, you can pretty much just do it by hand. I'm going to try and pry it out again. And then get the other tool in there to hold it. This is one of those jobs where if you had two people, it'd be a lot easier. Let me get this other one ready to go. Okay, that's it. See, now I can leverage it up fully expecting this thing to go flying out of here and kill me. So I do have glasses on. Like I said, went right past my head, but I did not get injured. And I'll look around and see if I can find that piece. Oh, there it is. I can see it on the floor. All right, now we're ready to press out the bearing.